Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay, and happy to welcome back to the show Carmelita Valdez-McKoy.
Hi, Jay.
Thank you so much for being here again, because we have got a choice moment to bring you back on the show. We are revisiting 1985 vampire movies, but we've already done Friday Night, so what better to do than talk about the thing that broke Jim Carrey, almost literally, Once Bitten, starring Jim Carrey, Lauren Hutton, Karen Coppins, Cleavon Little, Thomas Bellator, Skip Lackey, and Megan Mullally. Yeah, for like a scene. Written by Jonathan Roberts, David Hines, and Jeffrey House. Directed by Howard Storm. If you don't know any of those names, it's because you don't read the credits on television shows in the 1980s, because that's where they all came from. 1985, what a fun time. Little small budget movie here, shot in LA. Made a little bit of money, but I caught this one on video. We'll talk about that in a minute. But like, there's a staple of the 1980s, right? The teen comedy meets horror thing, so there's lots of reasons to maybe do this one. But what's your background with Once Bitten?
So my background is in that far-flung past. I would, this played on TV a lot.
It's the USA Up All Night special, yeah.
Yes. So when you pitched this to me, I just had that vague, 30 something years ago, catching this on TV in bits and pieces and remembered nothing about it beyond that it was really goofy. That's the only thing I remembered. Nothing about the plot. I just had this feeling, this sense of, yeah, I know I've seen that. It was a really long time ago, and I don't remember liking it.
Talk about 30 years ago. Let me help you with the math. This movie is 40 years old.
Okay,
so.
Yes. So just behind the curtain for Film Strip listeners. You and I have been podcasting together for what, 4 years now? I believe Fright Night was our first recording.
Correct. Yeah.
And anyone knows me knows I'll talk about any movie. I don't care. I just love movies. I love talking about movies. I love talking to my podcasting friends. But when you pitched this to me, I was like, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that and get back to you. That might be the first time that's happened.
It is. And I didn't do my hard sell, but I'll tell you why I pitched it to you specifically. All right. I didn't throw this to anyone else. Nobody, Ron and Lynn's don't know I'm doing this. Didn't go to any of, they didn't go to Matt or, the other Matt. I didn't go to any of the pod friends, didn't go to the Tis the Podcast group with this or anything, because I thought, who can I talk about this who will peel back the layer of the onion? Now, we should say this movie made $10 million on like a $3 million budget. So it made money. I mean, because everything in the 80s with the teenager in it made money. Okay. This is before the glut of those. Like, this gets lumped into that pile of them, but it's really about 2 years before the flood of those happened. But anyway, the reason I picked you for this is I'm like, okay, though, I have seen this movie when I was a kid on cable, right? And then I caught it years later because I was walking through the video store and was like, I remember that movie. And I remember kind of going like, I thought that was fun back in the day. And I watched it and I was like, I had like a different reaction to it when I rewatched it. But then it floats around on Tubi all the time. And I've had it in my list forever. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to watch that one day. One day I just had time and I said, I'm just going to watch this. And I put it on and I was like, messing around on my phone and doing other things. And I caught myself like paying a lot more closer attention to it than I had before. So I thought, you know what? For a dumb teen sex comedy, this has got a lot going on for it. Who can I talk to about this who might get it? I know just the person. Because I remembered that Fright Night discussion, which that's a much deeper and darker movie, as it were.
Yes.
But this is like if the Muppets did that movie in some ways. And maybe is more akin to the George Hamilton Dracula TV movie, Love at First Bite. I don't know if
Oh,
you ever
for
seen that.
sure.
Yeah, this feels like it lives in that same world, right? But I thought, okay, but there's something going on here, and we'll get into it as we get into the discussion. There's a little bit more to this, I think, and it's for a forgotten thing. And if you like Jim Carrey, if you sanction his buffoonery, as Tommy Lee Jones would chagrin to the rest of us at all, you can see all of it here. Like all the things that he will become known for in the late 80s, really into the 90s when the powers were on, mega wattage, up through probably the Batman movies when it started to wane a little bit. I don't know. I don't follow him that close, but I've seen a lot of his movies. You see all of it here. And I always find that fun to go back and find someone who's like this mega star, go back and find what they did early. And almost always they did a horror movie or they did a teen comedy, right? And I don't know. I just thought there's something about this one. I think Carmelita can lend something to it. So I admit I drug you into this. So I now owe you two because one of which we'll talk about after offline.
Well,
But
I'll tell you,
yeah.
I went back and revisited our Fright Night episode,
Mm,
and it kind of fell into place for me. Like, okay, I see why Jay would want to talk about this with me. So I think it's good we're doing this. I think it's good that you're making me stretch a little bit. Give me a challenge. It's easy to talk about the movies that you love, the movies that you've seen a million times that you know backwards and forwards. It's easy to talk about the films that you have a real deep personal connection with. It's a little more of a challenge to talk about something that you aren't as familiar with or that you just flat out don't like.
oh, tell me
So,
about it. I'm the guy that sold Two Girls, One Crypt that the Ashcan Hellraiser Revelations can be seen as a pseudo documentary on Eric Harrison Dylan Klebold if you watch it from a certain point of view. So believe me, I understand where you're coming from.
yeah, so no, I think this is good. I appreciate you presenting me with this little challenge. And I do think you're right. I think there's some things, thematic things that we can dig into here beyond just talking about the quality or lack of
Right.
in this film. Now, I gotta say, when I was watching this yesterday, it was a struggle.
Yeah.
I was struggling, but I persevered because you're my friend, and what we do here is important.
Well, I appreciate you taking the lead with me here as we do this. So let me get a plot summary out real quick, and then we can get into this movie. So Jim Carrey plays Mark Kendall, a perpetually horny high school teenage virgin who also runs an ice cream truck, whose biggest problem is the fact that he wants his girlfriend to go all the way with him, and she wants to, but she wants to wait until they're emotionally ready. So despite becoming desperate to become a man before graduation, as he puts it, him and his two meat-headed friends go to the LA club scene because that's what you do in an ice cream truck, and are just searching for the random hookup, right? Because nothing says maturity like failing at a pickup line next to a fog machine. Enter the Countess Lauren Hutton, the alluring Lauren Hutton, a 400-year-old vampire. I don't know. One summary called her a MILF. I don't think that's true. She's kind of a VILF. We're just going to call her that. And who likes to drink the blood of virgins and must do so 3 times before Halloween, or she's going to lose that eternal youth and become the greenette who smokes Virginia Slims. So she seduces Mark using the classic vampire technique of being rich, hot, and mysterious. And he doesn't even notice as she bites him on the thigh because, repeat after me, teenage boys are idiots. Mark starts acting weird, pale skin, aversion to sunlight, sudden love of capes, basically a goth kid. He smells like French fries and ice cream. He looks like the goth kids on South Park, by the way. And as Mark's transformation into a vampire accelerates, he gets really annoyed that everybody says, "You look like a vampire." vampire, even though I'm not wearing a costume. The friends become suspicious. His girlfriend starts becoming jealous because he starts hanging out in his underwear way more than, is socially acceptable. So Robin even puts two and two together and realizes, hey, there's only one way to stop this countess from getting my guy, and that's to have a dance off with her at the high school dance. So after serving, they keep going and they finally decide we're going to get into a showdown and face off at a crypt beneath the Countess's mansion, which looks like a set off of Buffy season 2, where Angel was hanging out. By the way, same kind of L.A. mansion. Might have been, for all I know. So they're dancing around and fighting through this labyrinth that looks like Liberace decorated the Hot Topic. And Robin finally tackles Mark and deflowers him in a coffin because nothing screams romance like plywood and, stained glass. The Countess ages instantly. Her youth is gone. It's last seen being helped by her kind of smooth butler, Sebastian, who clearly has been playing the long game with her for centuries, but isn't getting anywhere. So Mark's no longer a virgin. He's no longer a vampire. Apparently, he's no longer employed, but he and Robin ride off into the sunset, except he still can't see his reflection. So maybe she's dating a hot corpse now? Dun, dun, dun. We don't know. And we'll never know because that's how this movie goes. But that's about as best a straight line as I can give you through it. It's pretty simple. And I wanted to get into it. And we talked a little bit about Jim Carrey, but just thoughts on the teen comedy of the 80s. And it was a staple for 12 years, from the late 70s through the early 90s. This was a force of a kind of movie that people went for. And they had all kinds of other trappings hooked into them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this went in so many directions. And people will most remember the John Hughes films, kind of teen coming of age comedies.
Yeah, those are the good ones.
Yeah. And you'd have others that would kind of veer into more serious territory, something like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. On the other end of the spectrum, you'd have like kind of trashier teen sex comedies like the Porky's films.
I'm glad you mentioned those two specifically because like Fast Times is a dark movie.
Yeah.
Like there's funny stuff in it and people remember the funny stuff and everybody remembers the Phoebe Cates and Judge Reinhold pool thing. But there's like, we're getting pregnant in that movie. We're getting beat up. There's like violence against a teacher. There's a lot of dark stuff. And if you read the thing that Cameron Crowe, who basically went back to high school as an adult and hid for months and wrote all this down. All of this stuff happened at one time or another to somebody that he ran into. And I thought, holy God, what's going on in LA in the 1980s? That one's dark. And then you have Porky's, which is kind of the raunchy, crazy version brought to us by the guy that brought us Black Christmas and A Christmas Story, by the way. And it will never not be funny to me.
Right.
Bob Clark gave us that and Baby Geniuses before he left the earth.
Revenge of the Nerds.
Right.
It's another thing. They're a little older, college age.
Yeah.
But still young. And the trope of young guys who want to get laid, who are mystified by women.
Weird Science is this movie's cousin in a real strange way.
There's a lot of this. Mm-hmm. A lot of this going on in the 80s. And sometimes you would have a kind of a genre blending, a horror comedy or kind of a dramedy or whatever. They went in lots of different directions, but this was very popular, very popular.
Yeah, I would say like this is very much in the horror comedy realm, and then dramedy would be like Fast Times, something, even something like, and it's a little later, but like Uncle Buck is kind of it's not really a teen comedy, but there's teenagers in it, but it's kind of a drama too.
There's elements of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Ferris Bueller is a comedy, but there's a lot of drama in that too.
Yeah,
Cameron's kind of screwed up, so he's an abused kid, at least emotionally. There's a reading of that where all of this it's just Cameron's movie. All of this is fake, but it lets you have that one. But like Breakfast Club, too.
Yes,
it's a funny movie, but it's a drama. In a lot of ways. I mean, it's John Hughes' 12 Angry Men.
Yes,
in a lot of ways. And so, but I think that's funny that we're right in the middle of this movement of teen comedy, right? And really before horror comedy exploded. into the world. So we're talking about the flood of like Troll and Troll 2 and Night of the Creeps. And, we've already had Gremlins and Ghostbusters. So now everybody's coming off the heels of those. How do I do that again?
Well,
You
and
know?
this is interesting too, that in the previous decades, horror films were typically adult characters
Mm-hmm.
in these situations, being in peril, facing down monsters, facing down vampires. In the 80s, slashers, creature features, it all shifts to teenagers.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
you have the Friday the 13th, you have Halloween, late 70s coming into the 80s. And so this becomes the domain of teen characters.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
hadn't really been that previously.
Mm-mm. And it's because the teenagers in the 1980s were a target market for the first
Hmm.
time in Hollywood's eyes. These were kids that had the money to go to a movie, had the wherewithal to do it, had transportation, and would go in droves. So, I mean, I talked to my brother, he's 5 years older than me. He saw this in theaters because him and his buddies were like, yeah, this looks like a fun time on a Friday night. This is what and it was like a group of them, Gen Z thinks they invented group dating. I got news for you. So people been
Oh,
doing that a
yeah,
long
no.
time. Yeah. No, that's been going on forever. But this was the thing that you did. This was one of the things you would do. And what's funny is that this movie is a product of that, but it is also a mirror to all of that stuff too. And I think it's interesting that we've got largely a television director and television writers putting this together, people who came from sitcoms, right? And what makes a sitcom work? It finds little things that not just the coasts are related to, but people in Kansas relate to, right?
Yes.
It relates to everybody. So this is a very relatable, easy to slip into film once you get into it and realize what you're watching.
No, no doubt. Well, it's funny when I put this on, I didn't, like I said, I didn't remember anything about the plot really, almost nothing
Yeah,
after all this time. And as I'm watching, I'm like, man, they really tried to rip off Fright Night. And
big
I was
time.
I was starting to get like they're trying to rip off Fright Night. And then I looked at the timeline. They came out the same year.
Hmm. They were probably aware that it was being made, because everything is in Hollywood, everybody
Sure, of
knows.
course.
But they clearly weren't going for the same stuff. But
No. And
but
so it's
vampires
funny.
being in with a girlfriend is what's wild.
Yeah,
Um,
this zeitgeist, right? What's
hmm.
the chances of these two teen comedy horror films that are dealing with sex and vampires,
Yeah.
very similar lead character, main character who wants to get laid and is frustrated about not being able to do that. And it's fascinating that they both come out the same year. What are the chances? It's at this the
Well,
time, I guess.
if I were to just tell you, I want to watch a movie with you, and the premise is a horny teenage boy almost becomes a vampire because his girlfriend has boundaries. What movie am I talking about? It could be Fright Night. It could be Once Bitten. It's kind of like I want to watch a movie about the Earth almost being destroyed by an asteroid, and some astronauts have to go do something about it. We talk about Deep Impact or Armageddon,
Yes,
So it's
yes.
it's the same idea, and that's what I love about that is that the premise of this is really simple, but it's the thing about this movie that I think if it has any staying power, and I want to be very clear, I'm not putting this up there with The Godfather. Okay, people, listen, I'm not trying to oversell this. All right, but it's still in out there in the world, and people do revisit it as we just rewatch everything these days. But if it's got any kind of lasting staying power at all, it's because this movie fools you into the same thing that almost Fright Night fools you into as to who the main character is.
Mm,
It's not Jim Carrey, and it's not the Countess. It's not the vampire. I would argue that it's Robin. It's the girlfriend. The same way that Amy's kind of the main character of Fright Night because she becomes the not only the target but the damsel in the distress at the same time, and then becomes the fucking problem. In that movie that
yeah.
they almost have to kill before it's over with. So it's subtle in that way.
There's an argument to be made for that, for sure.
Let's talk about the Countess though, because
Let's.
Lauren Hutton is a whole mood. And um I only know her from kind of the random things I've seen her in. I saw a lot of Burt Reynolds movies from the 70s and the 80s. She almost seemed to show up in those. But she was just like other hot blonde model turned actress in the 80s. That's kind of what I knew her as. But she had that sultry voice, it kind of graveled a little bit, but it was still, I don't know. She's alluring in a different kind of way, but I mean, she is incredibly 80s. I mean, the only way she'd be more 80s if this was a Revlon commercial.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned she did Burt Reynolds films, and she has that Lonnie Anderson type look.
Yeah, yeah.
Very attractive woman. It's not hard to make her sexual, right?
Hmm.
But she also, her look is 80s, but you can see the 70s of it because she's not a teenager. She's not even someone in their 20s.
No, she's supposed to be like like she's passing as somebody in her 40s,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though she's in her 400s. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That character it's interesting to me that it's like they're trying really hard to make her seductive, and you really shouldn't have to try that hard
But that's
because
the joke, though, right? Is she
this
said
actor is so attractive, but the
yeah.
writing is just so batshit.
Oh, it is, but it's all in the joke though, is that she has to remain youthful. She has to feed on male virgins. That's
Yes.
the yeah, and that's hard to do in LA because all these horny boys
Oh, we're
out
gonna have to
here.
talk. We'll have to get into that. We'll
Yeah,
get
but
there.
I mean that's the setup is that it's really hard to find a virgin in the 80s, especially in a place like LA. And I was like, wow. So, but what's funny is the other three male characters we meet in the movie are like, nope, these three guys meet the bill right now. Like it's not that hard. You're just looking in the wrong place.
Yeah. Well, and Dracula is one of the most famous, if not the most famous vampire.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But there's also, and Carmilla is another, the story of Carmilla is another very famous vampire story. But the Countess Bathory from Hungary, taken from real history, is another one of these figures that comes up in vampire lore and vampire films. The countess who bathes in the blood of virgins and kidnaps girls or takes girls into her service and bleeds them dry to stay young. And so the Countess in this is very clearly a play on that figure. But it is funny that instead of it being young women that she preys on, and in the 70s there were films that did this Countess Bathory thing and played up the lesbian vampire angle. In this one,
Right.
we're doing this because it's a teen comedy.
Hmm.
We no, she doesn't care about girls. She needs to find a male virgin, and that becoming, the crux of the comedy here.
Right. And let's play with that for a minute, though. What if she realized, like, you know what? Maybe the answer is to go after the Robins of the world and not the Marks.
Might be more successful.
I mean, she might have been, right? But that
Well,
would have been an interesting twist, too.
I mean, this film is very, I think you're right. There's an argument to be made that Robin is really the main protagonist of this or the hero of this story. But it's definitely written from the perspective of a teenage boy,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
right? Because this idea that everybody's getting laid. Statistics don't bear that out, folks.
Not remotely. Yeah, never.
Even in the 80s, I actually looked up statistics of like surveys that they've done of teenagers between the ages of 15 and 19. And yes, there was a higher percentage of teenagers who self-reported in the late 80s that they had sex before. But it wasn't, it topped out at 50-60%.
Yeah.
Not really, it's not that high, folks.
Yeah, I think that's part of the joke here, though, too,
Yes.
is that all these guys are worried about this, and what they
Yes.
don't realize is that everybody who's telling them that is lying.
Yes.
Like nobody's.
Oh my God. The
getting
people
laid.
who talk about their sex life all the time
Are
in
lying about
in teenage, early 20s,
it. In high school. Yeah.
the people who are really doing it, they were not talking about it.
Yeah, I know, right? Like really, like no, that's the thing you only learn in adulthood is that you don't have to talk about it. So
Yes, if you're
you
doing
know,
it, you don't have to talk about it.
yeah, you don't, and you don't want to because then it becomes 1,000 questions that you don't want to answer. So
Yes, and it's, so this definitely plays on that anxiety
mhm.
of a young man or someone, kind of hitting their sexual awakening, being afraid of what if I'm the last virgin in LA.
Yeah, because he's worried about it because he's like, well, if I'm the last virgin in LA before I go to college, what am I going to do? Like he's going to get torn asunder at college or something. But that was the fear, right? Oh, I can't go to college and not be, experienced. And it wouldn't have mattered as the math
Yeah, and for the
proves.
Countess to double down on this, that she's struggling to find virgins anymore, plays on that fear that some folks in the audience would have had. Could
Right.
I be the last virgin that I know?
Right. I mean, isn't that even a joke in like Independence Day? In the when the aliens are texting, you don't want to die a virgin when the aliens come right in and the brother has to kick it like, come on, we're going, you know? And like, man, that what a line to try to play at the apocalypse, but I guess dudes suck and we'll do that. So Jim Carrey and his two doofus friends, Russ and Jamie are they are a set of tropes from mid 1980s movies that can only exist in that era. One, because they say some horrible things that we're not going to repeat.
Right.
Two, because they are very clearly coded as hiding what they really feel. And three, because every cool guy has to have two doofus friends. Like those are the three things that they live in.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. They're so goofy. It's so
Mhm.
they're so goofy. And I mean, we ran into this in Fright Night, right? With the Evil Ed
Mhm.
character.
Yes.
Now, Fright Night, Evil Ed was actually helpful
Right.
and smart, and he was capable in his own way.
Yeah,
He
he knew
wasn't,
he had information. Yeah.
yes, yes, he was
Mhm.
pivotal to the story.
Mhm.
And these guys, really, their function is just to make Jim Carrey's character, Mark, maybe look not as much of a doofus as they
Right.
are.
Which is a tall task when
It
you're talking
is.
about Jim Carrey, who is doing all of the rubber face Jim Carrey stuff. Like, because well, and as you if you hear him tell it, he probably wouldn't tell it now. But at the time, that was what he did. That was his whole. That was what I was tall and lanky. It was what I. It was my gimmick, and it kind of worked. I mean, it got him a whole career. But that is a tall task for guys to try to play funny, be yet the straight guy to Jim Carrey's goofiness. But Mark's supposed to be the cool one,
Yeah.
because he's got the better job, at the ice cream truck. So that's hilarious. And I guess it's a fast food truck. I kind of lay it off as an ice cream truck, but it's got the whole paper hat situation and all that going
Yes.
on. That was a throwback to a different time. Because we didn't have a lot of those in Alabama, but when you saw one, it was like, oh wow, those do exist. So, but I don't know, just the way that they operated together. I always found it funny because I didn't experience this with my guy friends. Maybe it was just my experience, but I didn't have like buddies who were kind of rooting me on for my conquest or exploits. More likely they're like, "Oh man, how was your date? It was oh, it was just kind of cool. I don't know. All right, cool." And that was it. Like I didn't start to talk about this, but I was a teenager in the 90s, not the 80s. So to be fair, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And this is definitely a trope in these 80s teen comedies. The friends that are really concerned about their other friend getting laid.
right.
Even in Fast Times,
Mm-hmm.
Damone is coaching his friend Ratner to get laid, how to get laid, very
With
concerned about
Stacy,
his
yeah,
friend getting laid.
right.
And a lot of these films do this.
Mm-hmm. but he's supposed to be like more of the expert, right? Damone
Yes.
is, right?
Well,
And
he
he
plays it like
plays
he's an
it.
expert.
Yeah, as we know, he is not. But
No.
that's the idea, is there's this he's almost like the front runner type of wingman though. Like he's going out in front. I'll help
Yes.
you look at this. We'll see what we can do. This is how you say this, how you do this. Whereas these two doofuses are like, we got your back. We're there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll act like we're cool too here in this bar that we definitely don't belong in, even though we all look 30. So no wonder we didn't get carded. Um, I think it's funny how, and this is I'm going to start making my case for Robin, maybe my new favorite 80s horror girlfriend ever now, surpassing Debbie from Friday the 13th Part 3, which I will talk about why she holds that case in a little while. But like the fact that she suffers these two fools at all and doesn't get annoyed by them. She's sort of like, oh, they're kind of cute. They're like little corgis or something. Like they follow him around. I found that to be their interplay was enduring. I'll say that. Like I think Jim Carrey and Karen Cobbins had some good chemistry together. Him and his two doofy friends, it's kind of whatever. But I thought she kind of vibed with them pretty well. Like I could see a world where Jamie and Russ and her were like closer friends.
I will say this does seem like the kind of group of friends that there would be. Even though his two buddies are just so clueless. They all kind of just look like your average clean-cut white suburban kids in the 80s, even though they're in LA, but they look like suburban kids. They just look like your
Yeah.
average all-American kids.
Yeah,
That this idea you would have been sold in the 80s. They fit.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they do look like they don't look like what I would have would thought were LA kids.
No.
They look like people I went to school with, or maybe my
Yeah.
brother went to school with. Now, you grew up in California. I know it was in LA, but this does not feel LA, even though it's very California.
It really doesn't. And again, I didn't remember anything. So I didn't remember where this film was supposed to be set. And so at the start of the film, it just looks like anywhere USA. And so when they go out to go to this singles bar and there's a Hollywood Boulevard sign, I was like, what? This is this is supposed to be LA? Who are these people? This doesn't make any sense. And that whole sequence is hilarious. Just the stereotypes of what people and it really does look like it's pitched to folks that live outside of California, outside of Southern California or LA, what people in the middle of America would think people in downtown LA look like.
And when you go to downtown LA, it's so seedy and kind of scary. And they're in
Right.
that club, and I mean, I felt like I
But
was
it's
getting,
cartoonish, right? I mean,
yeah.
there are places in LA that are seedy and kind of scary
hmm
if you don't know how to handle yourself.
But not like this.
But not like this. It's
No,
cartoonish.
this is what the 80s fear, middle
Yes,
America fear of LA was. And
absolutely.
and again, that's why it would appeal to people, right? And so I love though how the Countess rolls in and she sees, Mark, and when they meet, each other or whatever. I wrote in my notes, I was like, Mark has such no game. How did he ever land a cute girl like Robin? Like, did they grow up together? Are they neighbors?
They mentioned
Something?
having been together for 4 years.
So like freshman year of high school.
Right.
Wow. I
So young.
Yeah. But I mean, we all went from 14 to 18. You grow and fight and argue and break up. Like I didn't know a single person that stayed together through high school.
The entire time in high school. Yeah, it's very rare. Well, here's something that I picked up on that the vampire minions, which we will have to talk about, they spot Mark from the
Yeah.
street. They spot him and they're like, that's a virgin.
Right? No, yeah. They're almost the anti Jamie and Russ. They're like
Yeah.
her, they're like that one. Right. Yeah.
And so the Countess is like, she's ready. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
oh
kid's
yeah.
a virgin. She didn't even have to guess.
Yeah, I mean she knows immediately. And that's what's hilarious is though when she brings him back to the mansion and he is trying. He is try hard so bad in there. And then when she starts making moves on him, he clearly has no idea what to do.
He's scared.
Yeah, scared to death, as you would be. Like if some gorgeous cougar had tried to make moves on me when I was 17, I would have ran. I wouldn't have
Yeah,
known what
yeah,
to
I gotta know what to
do.
do. Well,
Yeah.
and then also she has some interesting ideas about foreplay.
Yeah, as in their
Why?
Jade. So,
Why does she bite off the buttons
right?
on his clothes?
That's some Sharon Stone basic instinct
That's
shit right there.
weird. It's not. I don't know what to make of it. And she does it the first time in this initial seduction. And I thought, okay, but it comes back throughout the film.
Yeah,
She
she keeps
every
doing it.
time
I
they
don't
have an encounter.
I don't know if like Lauren Hutton like came up with that. There's no behind the scenes stuff on any of this, or if like they wrote it that way, but she just kept doing it.
I mean,
And I thought,
my
is this
thought
not
is that this is a joke about, you know how there would be like those kind of softcore Skinamax things, and there was
Mhm.
always like, oh, remove my clothes with your teeth, and that kind of
Some
nonsense
nonsense?
that
Yes.
people don't
Yeah.
actually do.
It's the same shit that they pulled in that Ninja 3 movie where the woman's pouring V8 down her chest while she's
Yes,
making out with the
edible
guy.
panties was a thing in the
Right,
80s that you
right.
would hear people talk about the mythological edible panties. How many people actually bought and used edible panties and found that
Mhm.
effective and not just as a gag or a novelty?
Right, right. Like, but those things become tropes, like you're talking
Yes.
about, right? And the fact that she's constantly biting his buttons off, and he drops some line too about like these are his dad's, and I was like, that's not weird at all. So, you know, yeah, I don't know. It was funny watching her seduce him, you know. But the thing is, though, she seduces him, but he acts different because he thinks like, oh wow, I got laid, but he really didn't. Like she
No.
just bit him because she's got to bite him 3 times, which is that's kind of vampire lore, and that gets played with a lot of different ways in vampire movies. That it's 1 or it's 3, and she got to suck their blood. Yeah, it's a lot
They
of
make it complicated in this one.
yeah, it is real complicated. I was hoping you could help me explain it because
I
I don't know that
I,
I
I
got it.
can't really. This is, you don't see lore quite like this in other films.
No, and not in a teenage sex comedy about vampires. Like this
No.
this would be the kind of complicated stuff you would need in Fright Night, and that maybe we had a little bit of in Fright Night. This is way too complex. Like,
Yeah, because she needs, so she's a vampire. The Countess is a vampire, but she will not retain, she'll be immortal regardless, but
right.
she won't look youthful unless she has the virgin blood, and it has to be by Halloween.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm like, is it because Halloween is like Halloween is now a sacred thing to vampires
Beats
too?
me. I this is the
I
first
think
I'm
that
hearing of it.
I think that feels like a hey, let's do this around Halloween. That's when all the kids will be thinking
Absolutely.
about it.
Yes.
That's yeah, it
So
sounds like a studio thing. Yeah.
definitely.
Or a very special episode of the Hogan Family, which I think some of these people worked on. So
Right. So she has to drink his blood 3 times. And it
yeah,
specifically has to be him, or does she just need 3 virgins?
he's got to be the same one. I think you got to have continuous virgin blood.
This was a little confusing to me. It is it have to always be the same virgin? Or
I
if she
think
had 3 virgins, could she have drank from 3 different virgins? I don't know.
I don't think you can mix like
I
that.
don't
I
think
think
it really
she
matters.
it can't be a virgin cocktail. I think it's got to be like
Ultimately,
straight Jim Carrey virgin is the only thing that'll work. And who knows? Maybe she's just so into him because he is so goofy. It's like, man, this guy's gonna be a funny
he's
vampire.
easily controlled. He falls under her
Oh,
thrall very
oh,
quickly.
yeah. I mean, I made the joke in the plot summary that she was hot and rich. That was pretty much all it took. But yeah, she rolls him in quick, and he just. Jim Carrey can be kind of a little puppy dog on a string anyway. Like
Yes.
he's done that 100 times in his career. And here, that's what I say. You see this, you're like, oh yeah, I see you do this many times. Like this is, yeah, you're just doing the same thing over and over again, which maybe diminishes the fact that you realize like, oh, this guy has no fucking range whatsoever. But but at least he's consistent.
Consistent. Well, and for a time, and with the right projects, the thing that he can do, he did better than anybody.
Oh yeah, nobody
Right?
did the zany white guy like him for a decade. So
And
at
that
least.
very physical
Hmm.
comedy, there wasn't a lot of people doing that at that time.
No, that was a throwback to
Yes.
decades prior. So it's very Marx Brothers in a lot of ways. So
Yeah. Buster Keaton.
yeah, all of that. So early Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
So some of those. Yeah, he definitely borrowed from the masters and went through it. Speaking of his master, the Countess gets that second bite, and that's when he really starts like doing the Edward from Twilight situation. I swear, it's got to be an in joke. The hair they roll on him when he comes to the dance with Robin is Robert Pattinson's hair in the beginning of Twilight when he walks in the room. Because Anna Kendrick has always made a joke like, I just refer to Rob as the hair because the first time I met him, they did this thing with his hair, and he just looked at her and said, "Bloody hell, I don't know." You know, I swear they were looking at this. Am I wrong? Jim Carrey looks like he's
Yeah.
doing
Well,
that hair.
in my notes, I wrote down that his goth look as he starts to transform was a major improvement.
Right? It works for him. Like it's
Yeah.
better than what that
The
whole
hair is real slick back,
yeah.
and he's got those 80s pleated slacks
Mm-hmm.
all in black, the overcoat with the blazer with the black.
Ray-Bans.
Yeah, it was a good look.
Mm-hmm. He should have kept that.
You
That
should
would
have kept it,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
That's what I love is that they roll into the thing and she's dressed up as Raggedy Ann, long before Conjuring took that away from all of us again. But she shows up dressed like that and he's like, I'm not wearing a costume. That just becomes the joke forever, you know? And I'm like, yes, you definitely are. But
Well, which any kid who part of a subculture
as
dealt
well
with this.
as Return of the Living Dead taught us, this is not a fashion statement. It's a lifestyle, man. So,
This was
no,
a reality for some kids.
no, I can believe it. No, totally. But I think that's what's funny is that there's subtle humor like that in here with this because they're obviously talking to middle America about you're completely missing the point of what all these kids are saying and what they really mean. And also, kids, you're missing the point because no, not everyone is having sex. In fact, most people aren't. And if you tried, you wouldn't know what you were doing anyway. You know? And that's the idea. It's like, oh man, you look at this was the time of the swimsuit model and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh wow, you just think, oh gosh, if I could meet a girl like that, you would sit and stare at the wall. You wouldn't know what to say,
Yeah, you'd be stuttering and fumbling over your words and yeah.
Basically what Jim Carrey is doing this whole time with the Countess or whatever. Can we talk about the dance off for a minute here?
I mean, we
'Cause
have to, right?
it's one of the two times like the music in this movie like really sticks out. Like I love that 3-speed song, by the way. It lives in my Spotify. I was a sucker for a good pop tune in the 80s. And it's the thing I remembered about this movie more
Was
than
the
anything.
song.
Well, because the song's got like a wordplay in it. It's because he's got to be bitten 3 times, but it's like
Yes.
once you are bitten, I was like, oh, that's smart. It's not smart. It's just good cheesy writing, but I'm like, oh, I get the hook. Like and to come to find out, 3-Speed was basically like jingle writers. They wrote a ton of songs for soundtracks. They wrote a lot of,
Yeah.
commercials and stuff.
I mean, I think it shows.
I can see it. Yep. It sounds like a pop song from the 80s.
A lot of the other music that's
Mhm.
used in this is those compilation. In the 80s, it would have been cassette tapes. In the 90s,
Yes.
they moved to CDs. Those compilation, like, hits, top 40 hits,
Mm-hmm.
or the easy listening or whatever genre. They would do those compilations and they'd have commercials on TV. And some of them were like the actual artists, but some of them were kind of the studio musicians that would do covers of songs.
Exactly.
The music in this feels like that.
It does. It feels like the studio musicians finally getting to play their songs,
Yes.
and part of that is in this dance off thing or whatever. 'Cause I love a good dance off in an 80s movie because it's just a reason to stop for 8 minutes and let actors do other things. I thought it was so neat though that this movie that sells itself as this guy might become a vampire because he's being seduced by this countess is the way it's sold on the poster and stuff and in the trailer. But really it's about this girl is going to fight for her man against a 400-year-old vampire and she's going to do it at a high school dance.
It's it's something.
I mean, name another one where that happens. That's pretty awesome.
It's something. And these kind of dance floor sequences or nightclub sequences, school dance. You see these in other movies and done in different ways. We talked about in Fright Night how that's a very seductive scene between the vampire.
Oh yeah, that
and
pulsing
teenage
music
girl,
and the
right?
way Jerry is kind of bringing Amy
Yes.
in. Oh yeah, it's dark in that.
And you'll
really,
get these,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This one or like Teen Wolf.
Mm-hmm. This is more like Teen Wolf.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is more akin to that. But like in Teen Wolf, you have like the fight on the dance floor that gets very tense.
Mm-hmm.
This one is it's in this weird limbo of these are attractive women. So I think it's supposed to be seductive, but this is definitely leaning more into the comedy of the situation than the seduction.
Well, it's because
or
one
the
of them
threat.
is dressed like a stripper because the countess is wearing like this V bodysuit thing, with long leggings
Yeah,
and
that
high
like the
heels.
French cut
With the
leotard.
tails. Yeah. She looks like the bikini tuxedo, kind of thing. And then you got Raggedy Ann, who takes her shirt off and takes the dress off and she's just in her stark white stuff. So she's the virgin protector angel girl or whatever. And just out there, but she's still got the little dots on her face. That's what's funny. Like if she'd wiped her face off, it'd be different. But she's still got that kid face on. So she's halfway between an adult and being a kid. There's all that going on.
Yes, there's a lot of that kind of that it just kind of becomes the text.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just something inherently hilarious about these women fighting over Jim Carrey.
Right?
Even though it's dancing and not like a violent confrontation. This is some aggressive dancing.
Yeah, over Jim Carrey.
Over Jim Carrey.
From the Countess's point of view, though, she's already 2 bites into this guy. So restarting now in the shortened time frame is not
She's run out of time.
Yeah, she can't do this again. I'm not going to find another virgin I want to bother with at this point, even though
she
there's a
doesn't care about him.
gym full of them. So
Unbeknownst to her.
her henchmen are worthless. So outside of that one scene. But yeah, I just find it funny again that they do have this whole dance off and it's intense and it's they're all vying for his attention or whatever. And this is sort of like, again, this is a teenage boy's fantasy is to have this gorgeous older woman and your high school girlfriend fight over you, right? Like it's just so stupid, but it's funny. That's what I'm saying. This movie is like, this is definitely leaning into the comedy part of the horror comedy at this point because this is hilarious.
Yes. It is definitely more comedy than horror. Although I don't think my housemate, my best friend, I live with my best friend, I don't think she'll mind. But I'll tell you that she confided to me that she saw this when it came, after it came out like on TV. She was babysitting and she was real young and that she was scared. And that's all she remembers is being scared of this movie.
Oh, wow.
But she was pretty young. Like,
yeah.
I
guess not if you were,
little kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I was telling her this morning, I said, well, I just want you to know that it's not scary at all.
It's not. The only thing scary is some of the fashion.
Yes.
and
And
yeah.
some of the really dated, problematic, inappropriate jokes.
Oh yeah, this movie's littered with them. I think any movie from this time period, you just got to go in knowing like I'm
Yes.
probably gonna hear something I would never hear today. It's just how we were at the
This
time.
one definitely that.
This one leans into it hard. Well, we talked about it. Jamie and Russ in a different future are together somewhere. Now, in this movie, they die because they become vampire food for minions, but they should have like opened up a clerk store together, or something like that.
Yeah, there's homophobic jokes.
Hmm.
There's a queer character, Sebastian, the manservant familiar.
Cleavon Little, who's this Broadway actor,
Oh, he's a great actor, and
Oh,
I even though the character is problematic because it's just so
hmm.
stereotypical, what people think gay people are like.
Right. He's very feminine.
Yes, it's playing that up, and
Proper.
some of the
Yeah.
jokes they give him are like, come on.
Mm.
But I will say, problematic as a character may be, he was the most interesting for me, the most interesting character, the one I actually would want to spend time with.
Sebastian deserves his own spinoff.
He does.
Like, I just let the Countess get old and dusty finally and came to New Orleans to wreak havoc with my friends.
Yes.
Like he's very flamboyant. So that's the character. But Cleveland Little is selling that
Yes.
in a way that lets you know, like, we can all laugh here. This is I'm playing this for a joke. It's very funny. But you don't know how old he is and how they met. Like, I would love to know that
Right.
story, right? Like that would probably
Yeah.
be a fun one at some point.
We don't have to guess about the other minions
Mm-mm.
because each of the vampires in her nest or coven of vampires
Mm-hmm.
have retained a cartoonish version of who they were as humans.
Well, that's the funny part of this too, is that
It's weird.
can you imagine? And I think that's part of like vampire lore just accepted is that what if when you become a vampire, you're kind of frozen in time in terms of age,
Sure.
right? But you still retain your personality trait. Right?
Yeah.
Imagine being perpetually that 17-year-old Mark if you're Jim Carrey. That's a horror worse than death.
Yeah.
Like, I would not want to go back and be myself. You couldn't offer me enough money to go relive 17 again. No way. Not in a million years. And that's a horror in of itself. And they don't play with it in this movie because this movie's not smart enough to do it.
No.
But it would be a neat way to go. Let's say this was like a television show for a minute. You can have a couple of episodes where Mark's like really struggling with this idea of like, I not only do I not want to be a vampire, I don't want to be 17 forever. That's gonna suck. She died when she was, hot and 37 or whatever. Cool. I have to be this goofy ice cream salesman the rest of my life.
Goofy ice cream sales.
I mean, really, that's the
Yeah.
fate he is up against, and I think that's really, really how messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the vampire that live with the countess and work for the countess to go hunting. It's like there's one that's the Confederate soldier
Yeah, that didn't age well. So,
that aged like milk left out
mhm.
on the porch
I think this is
in
when
the heat.
reenactments starting becoming a thing, like in a big way. So we were making fun of that probably, but
Oh, for
still,
sure. I mean,
still though.
but it's a little you get taken aback a little bit. One of the other vampires looks like an old-timey sailor. Like maybe they were like on a whaling ship or something. I don't
Maybe they were
know
on the Demeter. So,
what was happening. Yeah, each of the vampires you can pick out exactly what era they were turned
right.
because they look like someone went and got caught a costume at a Halloween store. Like, here's the hippie flower child costume. Here's your, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
It is like they all got one like characteristic, and we're
yes.
just gonna go with these characters. This is what we got. Like that to me, was a little disappointing in my opinion, like the way that that all worked out, because they could have done so much more with those people, but they're not the purpose of this. The purpose
No.
of it is Robin is there to save Mark, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
she thinks at first, I mean, she's already won the dance off, but it's not enough. She's got to go rescue him from the mansion, and stuff. And what'd you think of her ultimate idea of like, okay, fine, I know how to save you, and
I
she
mean, it's
throws
the
him in the
most obvious
coffin.
solution.
Hmm.
And in any film where there's a plot point that there's some magical ritual or some like satanic black mass or a
Hmm.
vampire that or a monster that needs the blood sacrifice of virgins, the answer is so obvious and easy. Don't be a virgin anymore.
Right?
So
This,
simple.
we'll just finish this right now in the
Right.
coffin, which is, I think, that is like insult to injury to the Countess.
It would have to be
Not only am I going to scream in your house, I'm going to scream in your
in
bed,
your bed.
right? That's, um, I mean, look, in some way, that's like, go girl, that's woman power. But on the other hand, it's like, this is more that fucking teenage boy fantasy shit
Yeah.
right here.
Uh,
And it's kind of annoying.
I will say the logistics
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
the
Um,
coffin lid is closed.
I once did a Halloween like thing where I had to pop up out of a coffin.
Uh-huh.
It was interesting. It was an interesting experience to lay in a coffin, and scare children. It was funny, but there ain't a lot of room in this.
Right, because the bodies that will be in the coffin aren't going to move.
Yeah, that's it, they're not built for space. It's kind of like the Smart for Two car.
Right.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you can drive in that. You're not going to do much else in it. And the coffin is not meant for the love. Let's just put it
No.
like that.
No.
Um, unless the joke is because it's a teenage boy, it didn't take long anyway.
Right.
And which is the joke in Fast Times. Damone always talking about, his prowess, and he's on the couch with Stacy for like what, 8 seconds,
Right.
and then she has to like lie about it later, like, oh, he lasted 10 minutes, or whatever. So, which I don't know. I all of that is funny to me. It's not scary. It's kind of dumb, but it is
Yes.
funny. And because it's so obvious of that, yeah, there's the resolve, right? And the way that the Countess, like the way they try to age her real quick, she just basically kind of humps her shoulders over a little bit because they don't have money for real makeup in this movie, and has to walk away. And Sebastian is trying to comfort her, and in the back of his head, going like, "Finally."
Finally. Well, I do appreciate that they didn't make her grotesque.
Hmm. Yeah.
I actually appreciate that as I march closer and closer to needing the blood of virgins to retain my youthful appearance. I appreciate that they didn't make her look like this hideous hag, you know?
Yeah, no, and I think that's the joke in and of itself too,
Yes.
is that she feels like I need to have these younger, things. Where no, you probably are going to look the same, relatively, because vampires are frozen in time. This whole movie is about lies we tell ourselves. So
Yes.
yeah,
And our perception of like what gives me worth,
right.
right? For Mark, it's I can't move on with my life if I'm still a virgin. What does that
Hmm.
say about me? And the
Yeah,
Countess, I can't move on with my immortality if I have to look old, you know?
right. But she could. She could be
Yes.
fine. So that's what's wild. She could be fine with it, but she's spent 400 years doing this,
I
maybe.
get it. I mean, I
So,
get it.
but I don't know. I just find it I find it funny that what everyone is most worried about is something that time would just take care of anyway and isn't that big of a deal when it
Right.
comes down to it. Like that's kind of the subtle joke of this movie. It's like, you don't become a man just because you have sex. And just because you have sex doesn't mean you're really any smarter or better than anybody else. In fact, it's probably not going to be that interesting. And also, and this is a little one for the girls too, is like, it's not this magical, wonderful experience. It doesn't have to be necessarily,
It's just one of those human things we
it's
do.
just one of those things. And for the vampires out there who we do know exist, right? It's like, you don't really need all the virgin blood. You could just be a vampire and not worry about it. It's all of those things wrapped in one. And again, in a movie with different hands on it, made for different purposes, all of those things could come through. That's what's in some ways frustrating about this, is that there's so much
Yes.
potential in the idea. It's just not entirely realized.
The more you and I talk about it, the more tragic that aspect is.
Mm-hmm.
That yeah, maybe with a a little more budget, but budget doesn't have to matter because there's
Mm-hmm.
some amazing films that are small budget films. Maybe with better writing,
Mm-hmm.
a more experienced director. I don't know.
Better
Maybe
actors. Let's just say it. Yeah.
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 If the if the execution were there,
Mm-hmm.
there are some really interesting thematic things happening here, some stuff that could be like Fright Night, that could be like some of those timeless teen movies that
Mm-hmm.
are dealing with some real serious stuff, but find a way to do it that is a little funny, can be a little heartwarming, and endures, right?
Right.
That there's a missed opportunity here. That's kind of sad.
Yeah. That it could be so much more than it is.
Yeah.
But as it is once bitten, a one and done. So we're at the part of the podcast where it's time to give final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. So Carmelita, what are yours for Once Bitten?
Friends, I didn't think I was going to have much to say about this. I really didn't. As I was setting up to meet you here and talk about this, I was a little worried. I don't know what I'm going to say, but when you have somebody with insight to talk to, it brings it, you got me thinking. So I appreciate that you made this experience painless.
I'm glad at least it was that.
It was that you brought up so many interesting points. It made this more interesting. I, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, folks. I didn't like this movie. I didn't like it at all. I don't like it at all. I really don't. I will probably never watch this again. I've learned to never say never. That's a mistake, but I have no intentions
There you go.
of ever watching this movie again.
There you go. Until someone else drags you into it.
Right. But I will say this. If someone's out there listening and you have the nostalgic feeling for this and you love it, I hope that we did it justice. I hope
Hmm.
I hope that the way that it kind of rubbed up against my personal taste didn't come through too much, and that we gave you something to think about. Or did it, I guess just did it justice. This this is a small popcorn for me. And really, this is like a small popcorn where the kid behind the counter is like, it's like a short staffed, or they're the other kid they work with took a break and is ill-timed and the line is long. So they didn't actually fill the small popcorn bag all the way to the top. It's kind of
You got
half
ripped off.
full. Yeah, because they just kind of threw it in there to get me out. So yes, this movie is not for me. But in talking about it with you, I had a really good time.
Well, I appreciate you jumping off of the ledge with me on this one to do this. I knew it was a stretch. Look, this has the makings of everything that I've given medium popcorns to for years, because it doesn't live up to potential that it's got, except for the fact that when you really sit down and watch it, you have to make a lot of mental gymnastics to make it work. Now, that said, it can be fun. Like I said, when I was rewatching it this time, I kind of caught myself getting into it and thinking, ooh, what is this? And I'm going to blame that solely on the fact that they've teased me with this idea that they're remaking Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I started rewatching a lot of Buffy. I'm thinking deeper about vampires than I probably should. I was laying a lot of that into this. I will admit that now. But I do think there are kernels of things in there. None of it's fully realized. But as far as 80s teen comedies go, you could do a lot worse, but you could do a whole lot better too. So it's a small popcorn, but it's not a burnt one. It's just a small popcorn that's kind of like, you know what? I'm going to the matinee today because I got 20% off. I'm really here just to see the trailer for the Odyssey, but I'm going to watch this other thing anyway. Yeah, I'll get some small popcorn.
Just a little snack.
And like halfway through it, you're like, no. But then later you're like, yeah, I'll go back for a couple more pieces. And like a day later, it's like, yeah, it's not too bad. And you're like, no, it's kind of awful. And he toss it. That's what this is. If you like Jim Carrey and you like Jim Carrey's style of things, I would say watch it just to watch him because you'll see all of it. Like you really do. It's amazing how all of it comes through. I was kind of blown away by it.
He's so young, 23.
Yeah, he was a baby in this. So, I was just blown away by just how in control of his kind of uncontrolled brand of comedy he was. And I say that as a compliment. It's not easy to do what Jim Carrey does. And I don't know, I kind of felt like there was something there, and you see why people would go to him and go like, no, I get it. This kid's going to be a star.
Yeah.
And
he's got something and you can see it.
And you give him the right thing. I mean, like a year after this, he does the Deadpool, which is a hilarious cameo or small part where he's trying to be Axl Rose. It's funny. It's one of the funniest things you've ever seen. It's also funny to realize like Clint Eastwood saw him and was like, no, I got to have this kid. Probably saw him in this, truth be told. This is, wildly enough, this might be Clint's jam for all we know. But yeah, small popcorn for me. But this conversation was way more than a small popcorn. It was a lot of fun. I knew I was talking you into this because I'm like, the person that I've had so much fun with on the Cronenberg movies and then those Conan movies, and who gave the greatest plot summary reading of all time in film strip history on the Transformers movie, I'm about to drag into the absolute slums. So I owe you two.
I've talked about worse. I've talked about worse films before, definitely. And and I'll say it's all about personal taste, right?
Yeah.
Coming into this, I'm not a horror comedy person. Even some films that are legitimately great classic horror comedies, acclaimed, that people love, are sometimes hard for me to connect with because it's just a subgenre that doesn't really do it for me. So I'm already going into it with that, just a personal taste that's different. But this was fun. I'm glad we did this.
I mean, it was fun to talk about. Again, we've done a lot of different things to kind of get back to school, if you will, and for that, this works, and it was a lot of fun talking about it with you. Carmelita, tell folks how they can find you and all the wonderful things you're doing, besides the times that you're kind enough to come and hang out with us here on Film Strip. What else you got going?
It's always a pleasure to be on Film Strip. But when I'm not here talking to you and the crew, you'll find me on Twitter and Blue Sky. And I post what I've been watching on Letterboxd. Same handle all over the place at Carmelita Says.
Fantastic. Definitely follow Carmelita. We'll link all of that in the show description. And of course, folks, you can follow this show on social media at Film Strip Pod. We share announcements about upcoming shows, other fun content. Don't forget to subscribe, share the show as well. And if you leave us a positive review, it'll make us feel really good about ourselves. So go ahead and do that because we appreciate the ego stroke, just like teenage boys do. And maybe more so. Until next time, thank you for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.